Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Such a satisfying story and a great way to be remembered. Normally, it takes years of training for the Bene Gesserit sisters to perfect voice, and yet some people have it naturally. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. I get to scare a thief. I used to work as a retail supervisor for a hospital hotel for years. I got a lot of stories during that time, but this is one of my favorites. The first time we see the person in question, he was grabbing a tray and heading over to the soup bar. I remember distinctly that he was wearing a very bright, memorable Hawaiian shirt. I was working the register, so I had a pretty good vantage point of most of the area customers would be, which makes it easier to keep an eye on everyone and everything. The man came up with his tray of soup, staring straight ahead. Worried he would pass me and forget to pay, I said in my winning customer service voice, "Hello, sir." He kept walking. "Sir, you have to pay for that." Still no response, and he didn't even speed up his walk. "Sir, sir." Being a woman on the short side, there was no way for me to stop him, so I picked up the phone and dialed security. The man decided to walk out into our courtyard, which just so happened to not double as an exit. Security came to me, asked me about what had happened, then went to go talk to the individual. He ended up being escorted off the premises, and we thought that was that. Just a very bold thief. But no, it couldn't stop there. It was a slow day, so hours later I was chatting with a coworker, me behind my counter, my coworker on the other side. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a very familiar Hawaiian shirt. The thief had returned. Now, for me personally, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I didn't say anything at first, but I did keep half an eye on him while I chatted with my work friend. On the complete other side of the room from where I was, trust me, huge room, I saw the man pick up a bag of chips and stuff them in his shirt. I was pretty ticked off, so before I could think, hesitate, or finish the sentence I was on in my conversation, Big Sister voice came out and I yelled in a voice that's often used to frighten people bigger than me, "Sir, put those chips back right now." My coworker was frozen in place with surprise and confusion, and the man's eyes were huge. There was silence for a few moments as I did my best to keep up the stern expression I had. He walked over to me, and it was suddenly very obvious how much smaller I was. Without saying a word, he took the chips out of his shirt, laid them down on the counter in front of me, and trudged away. For years after that, it was my coworker's favorite story of me, and one I tend to chuckle at now. And our second story. Naval officer didn't want to live with enlisted, gets fired. So this happened about 1.5 years ago, but I recently heard the news on how far my revenge went. I was a Navy enlisted service member and was stationed in Yokosuka, Japan for a few years before I got transferred back stateside. I worked in the main hospital that cared for service members and their beneficiaries. It's a small hospital, so everyone knows everyone. Shortly after I left, I caught wind of a new physician officer working in the radiology department. My friends would say he's horrible to work with, but that's nothing new. However, someone saw him print a letter and he left it on his desk and took a picture of it and sent it to me. He's requesting to move from enlisted housing to officer. Edit, found out it's not a private letter. He did actually send it to housing, and most of housing is ran by enlisted members. For context, military housing is available for those who are married, have a family, or are qualified based on their rank and depending on the military base itself. Typically, officer housing is much nicer than the enlisted. In Yokosuka, housing is basically the same all around because it's overseas, but most of the housing are apartments, and each apartment complex is called a tower. For example, Fuji Tower. There are 9 towers and 2 are for officers since enlisted members outnumber officers by a lot. Now, one thing about the military, crap happens. When getting stationed, it's the active duty member's responsibility to either apply for housing on or off base before arriving, depending on what's allowed. If there is limited space and you don't apply for housing on time, then you get put where there's space. So our new officer got placed in an enlisted tower. Mind you, enlisted members have families of their own, and other officers have been placed in enlisted housing before without an issue. Here are some quotes in his letter. And yes, this guy has a PhD. "I have many valid objections to living in a building of almost all enlisted and even many lower enlisted being an officer. There's a lot of crime, violent actions, and alcoholism that happen in enlisted housing. There are also sexual assaults and other perverts. My family should be safe in housing that is with officers. Officers are much more respectable, and these types of deviant activities are incredibly rare compared to the deviant activities of enlisted being commonplace. Other officer families will not want to visit with us because our family lives on enlisted housing. My children need to make friends with other officer children. My wife needs to make friends with other officers' wives. I need to make friends with other officers. Forcing an officer to live in a large apartment building with almost all enlisted is unethical. You get the idea. So this guy basically looks down on all enlisted service members, assuming every single one are alcoholic, criminals, etc. The kicker? He was an enlisted Army member before going to officer school. In civilian terms, think of a manager that discriminates and calls all of his subordinates criminals, violent, alcoholics, etc. based on your job position, forgetting that some have a family and, maybe aren't any of those things. And he doesn't have the authority to ruin your work life. He can ruin your personal life. Deny days off, make you stay late, write you up if he doesn't like you, and not letting you promote. Safe to say everyone was pissed off, and I have nothing to lose. I was separating soon and figure I'd have some fun before I get out. I created a burner Facebook account and posted the letter and the officer's picture on a popular military enlisted group page. Within 2 days, it spread like wildfire. But I wasn't done yet. The military has something called challenge coins. Think of trading cards, but custom coins that come in many shapes and sizes. I designed one with his face and a big middle finger in the back. On top of that, I designed stickers to show how proud us deviants are. Other coin designs came from other people as well, but so far I think mine was more popular. I sold over 70 coins to the initial person who originally sent me the picture at a huge discounted price, so she can sell them for a profit for herself. So the officer's face is everywhere because most people keep their coins displayed on their desk. No matter where the officer went at work, you would see his face on someone's desk, and since it didn't have his name on the coin, can't officially say it's him. I sold more stateside and even some got sent to Europe. I made about $3,000 overall, which was nice. The story even got featured on the online naval newspaper and on 2 popular YouTube channels. And if you're in the military, you know the only time big military care is when it's too big to sweep under the rug. This story got the officer sent up to captain's mast, which is like Navy court. He tried to say his wife was the one that wrote the letter, but no one's buying it because her writing style is way worse. She even tried to take the fall, but no one believed her. They both ended up deleting all social media. Due to this, he got served 3 UCMJ articles, which basically are his offenses. There's more. When you're in the military, you have a deadline on how long you can be a certain rank. If you don't pick up, then you're kicked out. And because he's new and got served UCMJ articles, he won't be up for promotion and therefore was involuntarily separated. Also, the officer program he went through pays for his PhD. When the military pays for your PhD, you have to serve 10 years to pay them back. If you don't complete 10 years, you have to pay the military back with money instead of time. So he lost his job and now has to pay back the military for his PhD, and since it takes a while for the paperwork to have him and his family sent back stateside, you can bet he socially suffered because nobody worked with him. Edit. The hatchet became a symbol of enlisted deviance because in his letter, he stated that 2 gangs were attacking each other with hatchets and other weapons at an enlisted housing unit. Not too terribly shocking to me, to be honest. Navy officers gonna do Navy officer things. And our last story. People are living in our just-built townhome claiming they're renting. Me and my wife bought a new townhome. It was finally completed last Friday. We did a walkthrough and were given keys of the finished unit on Monday and everything was fine. Today was our move-in day. We showed up before the movers only to discover 2 women sitting on blankets in our living room. They got extremely defensive and claimed they paid to rent it, and I called the police. I walked around the back and the patio door looks like it was shattered. The police came and I provided them with all the paperwork showing we're the owners. However, he came back with a residential tenancy form that was apparently they both signed. Half of it seemed to be blank. The landlord's name is someone who I have no idea who they are. On top of that, the kicker is that apparently their monthly rent is only $250 per month. After about 2 hours of back and forth of this, the police officer gave us a report number and recommended we seek legal aid. However, he cannot remove them from the premises until he's able to talk to the landlord, who apparently no one can get a hold of. After he left, one of the women came up to my wife and basically told her they would leave for $15,000, no questions asked. From when we were in there, the entire house already stinks of cigarettes, and I'm pulling my hair out because of this. I tried to get in touch with our lawyer. We talked briefly to building company, and they told us as soon as they gave us the keys, it isn't their problem. Update. Today they were forcefully removed from the property by the police. Our lawyer was somehow able to get a judge to look at everything and approve having them removed. The police officer basically told us not to move in and have the entire house professionally cleaned, as there's a bunch of needles and other things laying around. On top of all that, it seems they tried to seemingly destroy everything in our house. All the new appliances that came with our house are basically ruined. All toilets and bathtubs seemingly look like they've been smashed with a hammer. In some places, it looks like someone tried to rip the effing wiring out of our walls, etc. Our lawyer told us they'll probably go to jail for breaking and entering and falsifying documents. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.